Good morning and welcome to another edition of From Beyond Champaign. I'm Cody. You can follow me on Twitter or all the other socials at Cody_CHGO. I'm back for another episode coming off the win against Chicago State. And obviously the Big Ten season is about to start up as Illinois goes to Oregon in, Tuesday? In 2 days. So obviously happy New Year's Eve. Happy almost 2025. Obviously, the Illinois football team is probably taking everyone's attention right now with the bowl game coming up against South Carolina. But Illinois basketball, we got two huge games this week at Oregon and at Washington on Sunday. So as you all know, I am a fair weather Illinois football fan, excited to see them in their bowl game, but also this is a crucial time for the basketball team as they move forward into the Big Ten season, as we prepare our bodies for, I think, a very, very just kind of not really sure what's going to happen Big Ten season. I think I've said this before. I think Illinois has the highest ceiling. I think they have the most talent personally. But that doesn't always mean you're going to win your conference, doesn't always mean you're going to, just roll through every game. And as we've watched even early on this season, and for the most part of the last handful of years, it's really hard to win a Big Ten road game. So I'm not taking any games that they have on the road for granted. Any games they win on the road, I will not take for granted. And I'm not taking any team lightly at all, just because this conference, this schedule is a gauntlet. And Illinois has already played a gauntlet non-conference schedule. So before we kind of look ahead, I just kind of wanted to, kind of wrap up the non-conference season talk. I didn't do a show on Sunday because what was I supposed to say after beating Chicago State by it was 117-64. There's not a lot to say. They were expected to win. Chicago State was 0-14. If you follow me on TikTok, I put up a video kind of talking about, the game or whatever a little bit, and then just some things that came from it. Kylan Boswell with an awesome triple-double, first of his career, I believe. And it just feels like every year Illinois they now have a guy who's going to get a triple-double. I think Marcus Damask last year, Ayo Dosunmu did it multiple times, right? So it feels like every year Illinois is finding someone to get a triple-double, which is just not something you can do so easily at the college basketball level, at least. It's not something we see all the time. So it was really, even if it is Chicago State, it was still a pretty special thing to watch, especially for the hometown kid who from Champaign, and he grew up watching this team. He grew up sitting at the assembly hall and watching this team. So for him personally, I was happy for him. And again, it was just a nice win to end the non-conference season. Not technically, they still have Duke later in February, I believe, next year. But for the most part, non-conference season is over. And I bear the question to the people. And it's in the description or the title of the show. Who are we buying stock on the Illinois team? What one player are we buying stock on, and who are we selling stock on? So while you guys, sorry, I've had a cold the last couple of days, so my throat's kind of just a mess. Before I continue, I just want to mention I just got my new Illini mug from the All City store. As everyone knows here, my full-time job, I work at CHGO Sports under the All City Network. And at Black Friday, we started releasing collegiate mugs. All right. So I forgot to put it in the description, but All City Store, allcity.store.com. They have, you can go for everything. If you're a fan of any of the teams in Denver, Phoenix, or just those general areas, or Philly or Dallas, Fort Worth, you can get yourself a mug from a school that you probably like. But if you're an Illini fan, like you probably are watching this, I like this one. It's really cool. So I'll make sure once I'm done doing the live show to go put the link to it in the description if you want to get it. It's not a huge mug, but it gets the job done on a morning. So I don't do a lot of ads on here, but I really do like this mug. So anyway, so like I said, to bear the question, who are we buying stock on for Illinois heading into this Big Ten season? Now, as far as players, now who are we selling stock on as well? These are these are two players I wrote down for who I'm buying stock on. All right, Trey White and Merez Johnson. Trey White has been playing a lot better basketball since Wisconsin, since they beat Wisconsin earlier in December. Before that, it was. I mean, it's been night and day, to be honest with you. Sorry. I told you I got a cold, so bear with me, folks. It's been night and day since the Wisconsin game. Before that, I was trying to figure out what they want him to do, what he's here to do, and it seems he has seemingly kind of found his way, and it's huge because you know what you're going to get out of KJ, you know what you're going to get out of Tomislav, you know what you're going to get out of Kylan. The bench is still trying to figure itself out. You're not getting a lot of consistency off the bench, except from Merez Johnson, of course. But you're gonna need all five of your starters at some point to be giving you solid quality minutes. So obviously, Ben Humrickhouse has been a big topic, someone that everyone is very, very down on right now, and he didn't help himself again on Sunday against Chicago State, at least in the box score. So if for Illinois to be getting Trey White going these last handful of games is huge. So Trey White is one guy I'm buying stock in on going into the Big Ten season because I think he's only going to get better as the season goes along, especially now that it seems like he has found his role with this team. Now, Merez Johnson, he's been awesome this entire non-conference season. Merez Johnson, I think, can be even better. I mean, I'm not calling for Merez Johnson to be a starter yet because I do like the idea of what Ben Humrickhouse brings in terms of spacing, and that's what, like, if Illinois played differently, I think I would think differently. But because I know Illinois wants to play fast, they want to have this positionless basketball type lineup out there where you got long, lengthy dudes and guys who can shoot the three, right? I think Merez Johnson is going to more than likely be in games at the end of games in this Big Ten season, which is fine. I don't necessarily think that means he needs to start. Now, there was a recent game where he had like 20 minutes and Humrickhouse had like 20 minutes. So, and on top of it, Will Riley hasn't played well. Honestly, he didn't play well at all really in December. He had a decent game against Chicago State, but again, Chicago State, he's played well against teams that he should play well against, but he's been pretty underwhelming against most Power 4 teams. So maybe I should buy stock on Will Riley going into the Big Ten season, perhaps. But I'm not really sure how to feel about Will Riley going into the Big Ten season. I'm just hoping that he can be that lightning rod off the bench with DGL and provide some scoring and show some growth, because I think the best way to explain it sometimes is he just looks like a kid on fire when he's out there. And what I mean by that, it's not really necessarily in a good way. It's kind of like he's just moving 100 miles per hour. Like he just can't stop, like he can't. The game is going very fast for him right now, in my opinion, when I watch Will Riley play basketball for Illinois. So it doesn't mean I'm down on him. It just means that he's obviously young and I need to see more. But I do think that we could think differently of him come March. So we'll continue to watch and see some improvements from him. But the more we watch, the more I think that he is likely to be here in 2025, 2026. So if you want to look at a positive with him right now, because I think a lot of people thought, him and KJ, or maybe it was him and not KJ, coming into this year. One or the other. We all thought one of them at least was going into the draft after 1 year, and best case scenario would be two, in terms of for them individually. But at this point, I feels like Will Riley's going to be here in 2025. He'd have to really turn a season around for me to think differently. But so we'll see. But I'm buying stock. I'm buying stock on Trey White and Merez Johnson right now, man. I think those guys can be real difference makers, especially in a battle, grinded out type Big Ten conference that we see every year. Illinois wants to play fast. They want to shoot more threes and all this. I will say this, their defense is significantly better than it was last year, which is a huge advantage for them. Obviously, their turnovers make you want to pull your hair out. Sometimes they just decide that they can't make free throws. And sometimes you can see the youth and inexperience, continuity type stuff with these teams. But Merez Johnson brings something that they really didn't have last year. And I think it could be, he could be the quote unquote X factor here in the Big Ten season because of his rim protection, because of his rebounding, his physical presence in the middle of the paint. I think he can, if he can stay out of foul trouble, he can be a real asset for this team to help them win the Big Ten Conference. And then Trey White, I just think he brings a lot of versatility on offense and defense too. So I think, for a lot of the non-conference season, we didn't see the version of Trey White that we've seen these last handful of games. So I'm hoping that we continue to see more of that going forward. The nice thing about Merez Johnson is that we've seen pretty consistent play. He's out there. He's a rebounding machine. He plays defense. He's a presence. He's probably going to use all 5 of his fouls. But I think there's more. There's more. I think there's more that we can see out of Merez Johnson. So that's why I'm buying stock on Merez Johnson and I'm buying stock on Trey White. Would love for Will Riley to really outperform what I think we are going to see. Really would love to see it. And I would love to see I would love to see some consistency from DGL. DGL had a nice game against Chicago State, but I'm just like, I need I need more from him off the bench. You know what I mean? And I think if Ben Humrickhouse has been struggling and everyone's pointing at him, and I know the defense hasn't been great, but you're not getting a ton off the bench. If your name's not Merez Johnson, they haven't really been getting a ton off the bench overall in this non-conference season, in my opinion. So we'll see. We'll see how things play out and see how things change and how players grow as this season moves along. And they're going to play some tougher teams, no doubt. And it starts on Thursday against a really good Oregon team. I believe ranked number 9 or number 10 in the country this week. All right. The 2 illini that I am selling stock on, and this is more of like, prove me wrong. Like, please, I'm begging you to prove me wrong. All right. And I think in many ways you can say, well, if you're selling stock on these guys, you're probably not going to get anything anyway, because what have they given you? That's a fair point. But at the same time, as someone who covers baseball, you can move anyone and get something, whether it's the consideration of cash or the low A prospect. Okay. You can sell something for anything. You really can. All right. It's all about advertising, right? So the two illini that I'm selling stock on, Kerry Booth and Ben Humrickhouse. All right. This is, again, prove me wrong, please. I'm begging both of you to prove me wrong. Kerry Booth got more minutes against Chicago State, but like just nothing in the stat sheet. There's just nothing there. I don't know what he is. Was he always a project coming into this year and probably going to be looked at more for next season? I know that he hasn't had a ton of opportunities. There's not been a lot of games where he's got a ton of minutes. I get it. And I don't see it changing going into the Big Ten season. I just don't. I don't know what to think about Kerry Booth at this point. All right. And obviously Ben Humrickhouse. Like I want to believe in the guy. I want to believe that he is a guy that can be that extra little jolt for that Illini offense. Because if he has a game where he's making shots, hitting threes, he's he just adds a little extra jolt to this Illini offense. I know everyone points at his defense too as a liability, and I agree. I mean, Northwestern, that game, it's still makes me want to pull my hair out the way that game ended and how they just completely took advantage of Ben Hummerkaus's defense and how Brad Underwood really just didn't adjust to it. But he was brought in to make shots, man. He was brought in to make shots, and he hasn't been making shots on any kind of consistent level or recently at all. So maybe the levels will eventually even out. Like most shooters, that's usually how it goes, right? But when is that coming? It'd be nice if it starts at Oregon on Thursday. If Ben Hummerkaus scores 9 points for you on 3 3-pointers made, I'll take it. I'll take it. Sorry, throat. This weather here in Chicago the last couple of days, my gosh. It's either been really cold or then it gets like 40s, 50s, but it feels cold because it's raining and like you got the wind, whatever. So yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's who I'm selling stock on, Kerry Booth and Ben Hummerkaus. I personally am hoping that they prove me wrong. I do think that Ben can give you more. I do believe that he can give you more, but man, right now it's hard not to sell stock on Ben Hummerkaus. So, let me know your thoughts. Who you buying stock on? Who you selling stock on this Illini roster right now? Who that's played well would you continue to buy stock? Like, have we seen the ceiling for Kasparas Jakucionis? I don't think so. So maybe buying stock on KJ is a good idea. Maybe, Tomislav, he's a double machine. Maybe if he could act a little bit meaner down there in the Big Ten season, maybe that if you're buying stock, you could potentially be getting more out of him. Kylan, I think, obviously Kylan started the non-conference season kind of slow. And what I mean by that, he obviously was trying to help other guys find their roles and get into their spots and help guys move along. And then he started, getting into it. He had a great game against Mizzou. He had a great game against Alabama. And I think since that second half against Alabama, he's just been rolling, right? Great game against Arkansas. His worst game probably was against Tennessee, but man, when you think back to that Tennessee game, it's just, you feel like it was right there for the taking. Everything that you possibly needed to happen in order for you to win happened, and you still lost. And that's probably going to be the one that sticks in my head all season. That and the Northwestern loss. I think those two losses are probably the most heartbreaking of the year so far. But I think you can make the argument that perhaps they didn't necessarily deserve to beat Mizzou in the bragging rights game, albeit the refs certainly were out there being terrible and certainly benefited Mizzou more. So, I think you can certainly make the argument Illinois should have won by double digits in that game, and it came down to the very last shot. But they pulled it out. So maybe the levels of these things leveling out a little bit. The basketball gods came back and helped Illinois against Mizzou after brutal losses against Tennessee and Northwestern. So I guess that's one way to look at it as well. So before we look at who we're buying stock on team-wise and who we're selling stock on team-wise in the Big Ten heading into the Big Ten season, just want to talk a little bit more about this non-conference season and just in general how we feel about it. For me, if you go back and listen to old audio, I said 2-2 against the SEC. I said 2-2 against the SEC, and that's what they did. And they easily could have gone 3-1. They easily could have gone 3-1, obviously because of the Tennessee game. But I'll take 2-2. I always ask for 2-2, and I did say at the beginning of the year that Arkansas and Mizzou were the ones they would most likely win. And they dominated Arkansas, and like I just said, they beat Mizzou. They should have won by double digits against Mizzou. I'll take a 2-2 against a really good SEC conference. I mean, this Mizzou team did beat Kansas, right? Maybe they're better than what we all thought entering the season, right? Alabama, the situational spot going up against Alabama where the team had not played anyone really yet. I think that game would be closer now if Illinois got to play Alabama in January. I genuinely do. I do think the team has taken gradual steps forward in in a positive direction, in a way that they got better after that loss. And I know I said after the Alabama loss that that's a game that we'll look back at and think that game actually helped them. So, there's still a lot of growing to do. I think we all have a lot of concerns about their late game situational play. Getting the ball inbound sometimes feels like it's a chore. It feels like sometimes they can get a little turnover happy, which I feel like I say every year with an Illinois team. And maybe it comes with the fact that they want to play fast and move the ball fast and shoot a lot of threes, all the style of play, sure. But I think that there is for sure another step forward. There is for sure another step forward in the Big Ten, in this Big Ten season that we will see from this Illinois team that I think could put them in position to quote unquote be in position to not only get a good seed in the NCAA tournament, but give us some confidence that maybe, just maybe, they can be a second weekend team for the second year in a row. I think we need to see it play out. There's going to be more growing pains, I think. This game against Oregon this week, I don't necessarily feel great about it. It's already hard enough to win a road game in the Big Ten, but this Oregon team is also really good. But if they go on the road at Oregon and win, that'll be a huge win on their resume considering who Oregon has beat. So it's a huge game on Thursday. Absolutely huge game. So I'm excited to see how this team plays. You had that week off, basically the week off. Well, we had a week off going into that Mizzou game, and then basically another week off going into the Chicago State game. You've had a lot of time to rest and practice these last couple weeks. And now you get 2 games in 4 days. You got a game Thursday, then you got a game Sunday. So you got a lot of rest going into this Big Ten season, and I'm ready to see this well-oiled machine go into that next gear. You know what I mean? So overall, if I were to grade the non-conference season for Illinois, I'd probably give it like a B minus. Is B minus fair? I think a B minus is fair because you still beat Wisconsin, which at the time was a ranked team, and I understand they're a Big Ten school, right? But it was we're just talking about during the months of November and December, right? You beat Wisconsin, you beat Mizzou, you beat Arkansas. You were, at the very least, you were in the game with Tennessee, the number 1 team in the country. You were in the game on a national stage, and America saw you against the number 1 team in the country. I think there is a lot to take away from that. Like, I'm not someone who is here for moral victories, but if there is any moral victory, I guess that game is one that I guess I can swallow that pill on. As much as they absolutely should have won the game, I can swallow that pill of moral victory for that one, I think. So it absolutely could have been better. Absolutely. You could make the argument they should have gone 5-0. They should have gone 5-0 in December. And then I would have given them an A for their non-conference season. Would have absolutely. Should have beat Northwestern, should have beat Tennessee. Absolutely. Right? Should have gone 5-0 in December. But you still basically did what I asked you to do. I said, if you go back to the beginning of December, I tried to predict how December would play out. I asked for a 3-2. I think 3-2 was a reality take. I just said I dream about a 4-1 or a 5-0, right? But I thought reality always was 3-2, and it's largely because the team was young, didn't have a lot of experience, lacked continuity, right? So I would, again, I gave them a B minus for their non-conference season, and that grade can still change, I guess, because they will play Duke, you know. So, you know, Jason in the chat, what's going on, man? He says Illinois should only have one loss to Alabama would be a top 10 team. I agree, man. I absolutely agree. It's incredibly frustrating that they don't. But I think this is just the state of when you have a team that's young and, like I said, lacks continuity at the beginning of the year, and it's kind of the state of college basketball. They're not the only team that's like that. But you're right. They should only have one loss. The loss to Alabama is probably, like, I guess their worst loss, right? Like they should have beat Northwestern. They should have beat Tennessee. You can make those. I mean, you led by 5 points with 2 minutes to go against Northwestern in Evanston, and then, you know, we all watched how the Tennessee game went. They just didn't take advantage of the opportunity in that game, which is just makes me want to pull my hair out even more. But I'm not going to rant and rave on it any more than I already have. But I just think that because of those things, being in that game against Tennessee and honestly, in a way, I guess the spread against Tennessee was 1 point. Like, Vegas thought that game would be close. Maybe perhaps I shouldn't give them a moral victory on that, but I think going into the season, I didn't know if they would be able to hang around with Tennessee. So maybe they outperform my expectations a little bit. So, Jason also says, what do I think of Boswell's comments about him having the most fun on a team he has ever had? I did see that clip on my Twitter timeline the other day. Do I think are you asking me if I think he's like throwing shade to Arizona? I mean, no. I just think that the culture at Illinois is awesome right now. And I'm going to get into that a little bit more as we move along here, as we get into who we're buying stock and selling stock on in the Big Ten. But I just, I feel like Brad Underwood has created such a great culture. I remember towards the end of the Gross era, you had all those off the court issues, man. You had all those off the court issues with a lot of players. And I just think about some of the mid 2010 years, and I'm like, man, look how far this program has come, and just in terms of culture since then. And even though it feels like it's a new team every single year, Brad Underwood it's almost like he's transparent with everyone he brings in, and it's like, this is what we do, this is how we do things, and this is how you're going to do things. And if you want to be part of that, you can be an everyday guy, right? So I just think Kylan Boswell is setting himself up to potentially got a long way to go. Potentially one day, perhaps, getting that jersey put up in the rafters if he has a lot of success here at Illinois in terms of winning. But I think the numbers will speak for themselves by the end of it if he continues to play the way he does and give this team everything that he does. But if he does a lot of winning, if there's some March success here, I think Kylan Boswell could easily have his jersey in the rafters in 2 years. So I'm just excited that he's here, and I love the storyline behind him being, from Champaign, a kid that came to the Assembly Hall, State Farm Center, whatever, and grew up watching this program, and now he's here playing for it, and they're a top 25 team in the country. So I think it's a cool story. It's a dream that a lot of kids growing up wish they had, Jason says, I just think he's playing free, and Brad's offense is huge to a lot of players playing free. I love honestly to see it. Preseason, everyone was saying Boswell would suck. Not the case. Well, I remember I said preseason on this YouTube channel that, I think Illinois' ceiling will be dictated by Kylan Boswell. Like, I just thought that he is kind of like that. I don't want to say X factor, but I do think that his experience in March and his experience overall playing 60 plus games of college basketball compared to the experience for everyone else was huge. And he's clearly showing you his entire bag every single game. Whether he is scoring, he's locking down the best offensive guard for the opposing team every game, it feels like. And yeah, like you said, Jason, he is playing free. He's going out there, he's taking shots that he's used to taking. And not every game has been perfect, but he has been productive. And I just think this team can go as far as he and KJ can take them. I do think obviously KJ is the better player. KJ is the better player. He's the better shot maker. He is the alpha. But Kylan kind of just does all these other things, whether it's rebounding, whether it's getting guys involved, making that incredible no-look pass to DGL against Chicago State that led to that dunk on Sunday. Like, I know that was a flashy play or whatever, but like that's just what he's been doing. He's been making the right pass, getting guys out in transition and helping guys get better all season. I just think he is one of those difference makers with KJ. KJ, clearly the better player, but Kylan, he does a little bit of everything that, I just feel like is incredibly valuable. So I'm happy to see him having a ton of success here at Illinois. I do think Arizona fans were done with him. I'm not here to argue if they should have kept him instead of Caleb Love, but I think the biggest thing with Arizona was roster construction. I think two things can be true. Like, Caleb Love is a really good college basketball player, and so is Kylan Boswell. Can they exist together on the same team? I mean, they showed at times in the past that they could have, but it wasn't consistent, and you just felt like both kind of just didn't mesh well at the end of the year. I don't know. Maybe I'm completely wrong on that. It's not like I watched Arizona play every single game, but I know the narrative around Kylan at Arizona, especially in March and late in the year, was that he basically disappeared. I don't necessarily think that's all his fault, but he is also older now, more experienced. And again, he's in a new program and he's having fun, like you said, Jason. And I think that he is definitely playing in a system that benefits him more than when he was at Arizona. I think that's the easiest way you can put it out there and say it. Jason says, sorry, I think this could have played out way different. Boswell could have had an ego playing with KJ, but Boswell says KJ is the best player he has played with. That's huge to me. I'm a Boswell fan. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a good point as well. Like, you have to realize who the alpha is and then just let them be who they are, right? I think there might have been some like clashing between him and Caleb Love. I don't really know, but I think that possibly could be a thing. This absolutely could have played out differently, right? I would not be surprised. I would not have been surprised, considering some of the things we've seen in this program in the past, just a few years ago with like the Matthew Myers and Jaden Epps, those guys, right? Like, I just think Brad deserves a lot of credit for putting a pretty good roster together in a year where you're putting an entirely new roster together. Is it perfect? No, because if it was, we wouldn't be sitting here complaining about Ben Rickhouse every single game. But overall, I mean, I think they've kind of lived up to what we've expected to this point. If anything, we're all upset because we feel like it should be better. So that's a little perspective, I guess. So, all right. Jason, thanks for hanging out in the chat. If you are here watching right now, I haven't said this, hit the like button. If you're new, hit the subscribe button. Doing Illini content a couple days a week, not every day. big supporter of a Locked On Illini. My guy Sonny Verma, he's live every day talking Illinois athletics. I'm just a basketball fan, and try to do post games, after games, and little preview shows like this. And this is kind of a preview of the Big Ten season and looking ahead to Oregon as well. So the first half of the show, we were talking about which players on the Illini roster were buying stock and selling stock. Now I'm shifting it to teams, all right, in the Big Ten. Who are we buying stock in the Big Ten, and who are we selling stock in the Big Ten? Let's start with who we're selling stock, because I love to slander, okay? And I think it's pretty easy, especially with some of the news that came out of Bloomington, Indiana this weekend. I am absolutely selling all my stock on Indiana. I mean, this team got a ton of hype coming into the year. And now, like, their biggest transfer this past offseason was seen out at a bar, and Mike Woodson wouldn't confirm if that's why he didn't play on Sunday. But if you just put the pieces together, I think you can say that perhaps maybe he is the reason, or that is the reason that he did not play. And listen, college student out at the bar the night before a game. I can't sit here and criticize it too much, considering I went to the bar all the time. But when you play on the basketball team of a Big Ten program and you're paid now thanks to NIL, I think there's plenty of reason for criticism here. On top of the fact that, like, it's the night before a game, it's just not a good look. And so not only is it not a good look for Omar Ballo, but also, like, it's not a good look for Mike Woodson. It says a lot about culture at Indiana right now, man. And it's crazy to say that their football program looks like it might be in a better spot than their basketball program. Has that ever happened before? Ever? Has that ever happened before? So not only am I selling stock because of that, but I'm also, like, selling stock on them because they've beaten no one. They've played no one. They lost to Louisville, which maybe Louisville is better than what I expected. But also they lost to Gonzaga. Gonzaga's a really good school. They're a really good team, right? But they haven't played anyone else. You know, I think they beat Nebraska. Okay, cool. I just don't, like, I haven't seen anything from this Indiana team that tells me they're going to go win the Big Ten. And a lot of people were hyping the Hoosiers up this offseason. All right. I'm selling all my stock on Indiana. I think, like, you want to complain about Brad Underwood and losing games like they did to Tennessee and Northwestern and all that. I get it. But then you look at some of these other programs in the Big Ten, and you look at a once proud program like Indiana, a program that they still call themselves Blue Bloods. I listen, last year it was all, I was cracking the joke of, like, give Juwan Howard a lifetime extension. I have now shifted to give Mike Woodson a lifetime extension. Please, I'm begging you, Indiana, please give Mike Woodson a lifetime extension. So I'm selling all my stock on Indiana, okay? Who am I buying stock in the Big Ten? I think the easy answer could be Oregon. But I think UCLA is who I'm buying stock in. And maybe that's a little recency bias. They did just beat Gonzaga this past weekend. They also beat Oregon so far this year too. UCLA, Mick Cronin, good coach. They're a good program, blue blood program, in my opinion. Obviously, they have a ton of championships from the past. I think UCLA is a team that we should watch out for. And I'm looking forward to when Sky Clark goes up against Illinois for the first time. That will be a fun matchup. And I would assume perhaps Kylan will be guarding him. I assume. But I think UCLA is a team to watch out for heading into the Big Ten season. Their coach, they have a great coach. And I just think it's kind of a culture thing with them too. Like they just find a way. I know last season wasn't exactly a great year for them, but and you just look at the overall last 10 years, you know, they've been a pretty good program. So they're a team that I'm looking at going into the Big Ten season and not taking lightly. That's for sure. So, yeah, I'm selling stock on Indiana. I'm buying stock on UCLA. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Who you buying stock on in the Big Ten and who you selling stock? I think maybe another team you could buy stock on is Maryland. I think Maryland was impressive in their non-conference. Easily could have beat Marquette. They played a decent non-conference schedule, and I just think that they're just a really good program. They're tough. It's going to be. We know this every year. Every time Illinois goes to Maryland, it never goes well. You know, like you might as well just chalk up an L when Illinois goes to Maryland, right? They make me pull my hair out because I feel like Illinois is better than them, but then they just like they never beat them, you know? So I think this conference is there one team that sticks out right now? I don't think so. I think Illinois might have the highest ceiling. I think Illinois definitely has the highest ceiling, but do I think they're better right now than all the teams in the Big Ten? I do not. I think it's going to be another Big Ten season where we all beat up on each other and we'll get in like 7 or 8 teams, and more than half of them will probably lose first weekend. And then all of the slander will come out about how the Big Ten conference sucks. Just pen this now. This is how I feel that it's going to play out. Let me know what you think. Sonny, welcome, man. He says, hate that Michigan has a competent coach right now. Yeah, same. Dusty May's doing a hell of a job at Michigan. But I will say it was also a lot more fun when Illinois and Michigan played and the games were competitive. Now, I will say, because Hunter Dickinson isn't there anymore, I guess I don't care as much. But either way, Illinois and Michigan games were fun when Michigan was actually a good program. These last couple of years where Michigan's just been a joke, it hasn't been nearly as fun beating them. So if you want to spin that, that's the best I got for you, man. Sonny says, also Illinois plus 900 to win the conference right now. Do with that what you wish. I don't hate that. I haven't looked at the odds for the Big Ten right now. I haven't looked at them at all. I'm going to take a wild guess and say that Purdue or Oregon have the lowest odds, or the highest odds, I guess is what I should be saying. Yeah. Not a bad time to buy stock. Not a bad time to buy stock if you think Illinois is only going to get better as the season goes along. But it's hard to want to make that bet because they should be undefeated in the Big Ten right now. They should be. And I know how Brad does January. He dominates January every year. But I need to see more. And that might not help my betting ideas because those odds might come down. So maybe it is a good time to take them. But yeah, I don't know. Let me know what y'all think. Okay. Before I get out of here, I just want to look at the schedule in January, and we can predict the record in January for Illinois. Admittedly, I have not looked at the entire schedule in January, so I'm going off this just full, like, trying to guess. All right. So obviously we talked about they have Oregon on Thursday. Then they have Washington on Sunday. I will be at the Illinois Penn State game next Wednesday on the 8th. Shout out to Illinois for selling tickets in the 200 level for $25. Okay, so they have 2 road games to start January. Then they come home, play Penn State, which will be tough. What is it about Penn State and Illinois? I don't understand, but it's always it makes you pull your hair out. All right. Then they host USC. Then they go to Indiana. As much as I just slandered Indiana, it's a rivalry game. It's still going to be tough. Then they go to Michigan State. So 2 back-to-back road games in the Big Ten. 4 back-to-back road games in 2 different sections of this schedule in January. It's tough, dude. It's tough. They host Maryland, and then you get a chance for revenge against Northwestern at home, January 26th. And then you go to Nebraska, which in recent years has been tough. All right. So that's 9 games. 9 games. Brad Underwood has owned January over time at Illinois. So what do we think Illinois does in January? I'm thinking a little pessimistically right now, unfortunately. Yeah, well, at least for my standards. If you listen to this a lot, you know that I can be a little delulu. You know I can be real optimistic because Brad Underwood gives me every reason to be optimistic. But it's hard to win games on the road in this conference, man. It's so hard. That said, you've played one road Big Ten game. Give me Illinois on Thursday. Give me Illinois on Thursday against Oregon. Screw it. Full send. Give me Illinois against Oregon on Thursday. On FS1, 9 p.m. game. Oh, I'm either going to be extremely excited at midnight or I'm going to be ready to go jump in the lake. I know this. All right. Give me Illinois against Oregon at Oregon. Now, that said, do I feel like a letdown is possible against Washington? I do. Ugh. Can they win both? Can they win both these games? It's a 3 p.m. game. That actually is a good time for them. It's actually a good time for them. They always play bad if they play at 11 a.m. But if 3 p.m. is like always like the perfect time for them. Ugh. Yes, give me the Illini against Washington. We're going 2-0 on the road to start the Big Ten season. This is Delulu. If this isn't Delulu, I don't know what is. But this is how I'm choosing to go. We're going 2-0. Penn State at home. Revenge from last year. They should have beat Penn State on the road. 3-0 to start January. Host USC. Yes, they're going to beat USC. Go to Indiana. After all the slander that I have said about Indiana, Illinois will absolutely lose to Indiana on the road now because of all the slander. So, and by then they'll be due for a loss. Okay. So they're going to start January 4-0, then lose at Indiana just because of, I just know how this goes with all the slander that I've had. They will lose that game. But then they will respawn on that coming Sunday at Michigan State on CBS. It's an 11 a.m. game. On the road, sounds like a loss, but they will respond in a positive fashion, especially since we know what Michigan State is. Michigan State, they're ranked 18th in the country right now. They're not the 18th best team in the country. They're going to go to Michigan State and win. All right. Then they come home, host Maryland. What did I just say about Maryland? They can never beat Maryland. They can never beat Maryland. So they're going to lose at home to Maryland, unfortunately. But they will respond, get revenge against Northwestern, and they will go to Nebraska and win at Nebraska. So 2 losses in January. So I'm saying 7-2 in January. 7-2 in January. That's what I'm predicting. Is that fair? Is that too optimistic? Should it be more like a 6-3? Should it be 5-4? Like, I'm probably being way too optimistic, to be honest with you, to think that they're going to go win consecutive road games in this conference on the West Coast. First time having to go on the West Coast and the Big Ten for multiple games. It's very delulu of me to think that they can win both those games. It's very delulu of me. But I am who I am, folks. I am who I am. And I would love to be right about this. I would love to be right about this. So, yes. Give me 7-2, and their 2 losses are to Indiana because karma, and to Maryland because I'm just so used to it. Prove me wrong, Illinois. Let's go 9-0 in January. Screw it. 9-0 in January. Let's go. All right. Let me know what you all think the record in January is going to be. Before I get out of here, I'll say reality. I think reality is probably more like a 6-3 or a 5-4. This is a tough January schedule. So I think 6-3 or 5-4 is more likely. But Brad Underwood teams have been great in January over the course of time. So I'm thinking optimistically here. All right. 6-3 or 5-4, probably more realistic, but just let a guy dream. 7-2, 7-2. Give the guy who covers the Chicago Cubs a 7-2 January. He goes to Cubs convention. Roki Sasaki shows up. Kyle Tucker's there. And Sammy Sosa is getting a nice round of applause at everyone at Cubs convention in mid-January, while Illinois is in the middle of going 7-2 in January. Those are immaculate vibes. That's a great way to start 2025 for me, folks. That's a great way to start 2025. All right. I've been talking for 50 minutes, and I thought I would be doing this for like 40 tops. So we had a lot to talk about today. Very interactive chat or questions for y'all. So let me know in the YouTube chat who you're buying stock on the team and which teams you're buying stock and selling stock in the Big Ten going into this Big Ten season. Your record for Illinois in the month of January. Let me know what you think. All right. I appreciate y'all's support. I will be back Thursday night post game after the game against Oregon. Thursday night, be right here. All right. So hit that subscribe button, hit the like button on your way out. And as always, guys, I appreciate your support, and I will see you on Thursday. And as always, ILL.